Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Theo Ash YouTube videos. This is kind of the first longer form one that I've done here on the Stay Hot YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be talking about how I would give out the big awards, whether that be MVP, Defensive Rookie of the Year, all those good stuff. And we've talked about it as the season has gone on the podcast, how we're feeling about some of them. So you might know kind of where I'm at with some of these, but I'm going to get a chance to kind of explain some of my logic. So without further ado, and without a big intro, I will get right into it. And I'll start with Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think that Ja'Marr Chase kind of ran away with this towards the end of the season. And really, I don't think he ever lost it. I know Mac Jones beat him in the odds around the middle of the season, but to me, Ja'Marr Chase was playing at near an all-pro level all season. Obviously, my infamous Bengals prediction, where I got everything about the team wrong, kind of hinged on the fact that they were just not creating explosives last year. There was really not one downfield shot that got hit. You add Chase to the mix, and all of a sudden, they're the most explosive offense in the NFL, right? And most of those big plays went to Chase. A disproportionate amount. It wasn't like Boyd got his, T. Higgins got his, but especially at the beginning of the season, it was all Ja'Marr Chase, and he totally changed that offense. And that to me is good enough to not only win, Offensive Rookie of the Year, but to make Pro Bowls, to be considered, second team All-Pro or first team All-Pro, like that is a special thing for a wide receiver to do. It reminds me a little bit of Stephon Diggs when he went to the Bills, right? Josh Allen's accuracy was a little bit all over the place. You get this All-Pro level wide receiver, and all of a sudden, his greatest weakness became a strength. And, a lot of that is just him improving, but a lot of that is also just having a connection with an elite guy who can make you look better. And I think Burrow, he did a lot of work this offseason to generate more velocity on his throws. But a lot of that has to do with, Chase giving him that option as well. Love the season he had, and I wouldn't hesitate to vote him, Pro Bowl. All-Pro might be a little tough, but second team, sure. So that's Offensive Rookie of the Year. Next, we'll go to Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I think this one's also pretty obvious. It's Micah Parsons. That guy came into the league as, an inside linebacker who could rush the passer. He could if he really needed to. And he was good at it in college, but it's like, is this just going to be a special thing, like a package thing, send him maybe a little bit more than average? No. Micah Parsons, outside of just being a middle linebacker, was also maybe the most effective edge rusher in football. You look at the almighty pass rush win rate chart. He's right there at the top. His pressure rate, his efficiency, the clip at which he was beating left tackles, and the array of moves he was using to do it. His burst is such that he can just, explode around the edge and just beat guys with his speed, but his hand play was good. His bull rushes were good. He was going through offensive linemen. He was mugging up the A-gap, sorting out, the mess and getting through. It was in all sorts of ways he was affecting the passer as a pass rusher. 13 sacks is what he ended up having. You think about that last year, TJ Watt led the league with 15 sacks. 13 doesn't seem like so much this year because so many edge rushers had like 19 sack seasons. But that's a crazy number. That's not far off from the all-time rookie sack record. So it's obviously him just on the strength of him being an edge rusher. Then you start to add in, okay, how many tackles for loss did he have? We just watched that 49ers playoff game. He was in tough shape on the sideline. He needed oxygen. He was banged up, and he was still getting in the backfield, making tackles for loss all game there, and he was doing it all season, just as a traditional off-ball linebacker. And then in coverage, that's where I was concerned about him when he was at Penn State. Is he an elite linebacker prospect? He's not Fred Warner in coverage, right? Or at least in college, he was far from it. But this year, he was fine. He was good. He didn't give up. He wasn't getting torched. He did what he needed to do there and was, in fact, above average, I think, in coverage. I can't recall watching many Cowboys games where it's like, man, they're picking on Micah Parsons right now. I can remember more examples of him making great athletic plays to break up the ball. So all phases of playing in the front seven, Micah Parsons excelled at. Again, I would consider him for Defensive Player of the Year in a year where, I guess I shouldn't spoil it. In a year where something special didn't happen. I think he may have gotten my vote for Defensive Player of the Year in a different year, maybe, because of just, that Cowboys defense was a joke. One of the worst in football last year. One of the best in football this year. Micah Parsons, not the only reason that happened, but a big part of it. Let's go with maybe something a little bit more unexpected. in comeback player of the year. I don't love this award in general. Like, Alex Smith winning it last year kind of threw the precedence off because he didn't play well, but the fact that he came back at all was incredibly impressive. So, with the standards that we set last year, is it just who came back from the worst injury? But that's just a bad precedent. I think Alex Smith is kind of a special case, and I think we should look at comeback player of the year as like, who's a guy who was hurt last year and played really well, like the best player who overcame injury from last year or something. I don't know. It's just a weird award in its precedent. I don't love it. But for me, I think someone who missed all of last year and came back to be maybe a top 3 player at his position, however how you want to say it, I wouldn't argue. Nick Bosa. He is my comeback player of the year over the quarterbacks. He was arguably the best edge rusher in the NFC. He made the Pro Bowl easily, which Dak didn't do and Burrow didn't do. And I know that Pro Bowls aren't a great way to look at it, but I think that like it says something that he was, picked and they weren't, because for the majority of the season, Burrow's been on fire recently, just totally on fire. But I mean, Burrow wasn't like a total snub for the Pro Bowl when it happened, right? Like for the majority of the season, it wasn't like Burrow was this MVP candidate all year, but he really got hot at the end. So I think that he will win it based on kind of recency. But you look at Nick Bosa's resume this year, like 15 and a half sacks. Like I said, the league leader in sacks last year was TJ Watt, and he had like 15. He co-led the league in tackles for loss with 21. Nick Bosa did it while getting double teamed and dealing with chips at a higher rate than just about anyone else. That is a resume of like a top 3 edge rusher this year, right? 15 and a half sacks, lead the league in tackles for loss while getting double teamed all the time. That is just such an elite season. And what is the quarterback equivalent of that year? I mean, you'd be an MVP candidate if you were a quarterback, and you would be no doubt comeback player of the year if like you transfer those numbers to like the quarterback equivalent of those numbers. Nick Bosa had an elite season. So Nick Bosa, I don't think everything has to be a quarterback award. I don't think like positional value should come into play here. I don't think severity of injury comes into play for me a whole lot, just because I think that's just a weird thing to give it an award for. The case of Alex Smith, I think, was a kind of a special one, but I don't want to argue, was Dak's injury worse or Burrow's injury worse? They both sucked. They both looked really painful. All right. I'm not going to get in an argument about whose injury was worse. I would rather have an argument about whose season was better. So that's why I'm giving it to Nick Bosa for comeback player of the year. But continuing to move on, I will go with offensive player of the year. I think that maybe you can have a spirited debate between Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp, but at the end of the day, it's Kupp. I also might shout out Trent Williams. He was elite this whole year, and a lineman will never win it. But I got to give Cooper Kupp the crown for the triple crown. It's rare that it happens. All right. Steve Smith did it in, I think, 2005. That was the last time we saw someone lead the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And I feel a little bit bad because I kind of started a Cooper Kupp overrated narrative. That was kind of my bad. And to some extent, I don't view him in the same light as I do maybe like Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Devontae Adams. Those are kind of my tier 1 wide receivers. But after those guys, I don't really care where you rank Kupp. If you want to put him right after those guys, like there's a tier 2 and he's at the top of that. And yes, a lot of his numbers came on linebackers. A lot of his numbers came on safeties in the slot. A lot of his numbers came out of the backfield, and all the linebackers in their zones dropped way back, and then he was just hit underneath. But he also created a lot of explosives for that offense. He also caught a ton of passes deep down the field. He also didn't like drop a pass all year. The dude caught everything coming to him. And it's more impressive than maybe it initially looks. And that's something I kind of rationaled with, is like, learning an offense is hard. Learning a position is hard. And Cooper Kupp has got to know blocking schemes. He's got to know, how to run routes out of the backfield. He's got to know what his assignment is from all sorts of positions. And I couldn't learn it. A lot of guys wouldn't want to do that. A lot of wide receivers couldn't know all that, I think. It's a big task to tackle that kind of role, and just the mental aspect of memorizing all that and knowing all that. And, I think of the quote that Matthew Stafford said. It's like, his body language is the best I've played with, right? Where if you're in the slot, sometimes you get to make decisions yourself. It's like, do I settle down in zone right now, or do I keep running away from the man defender? And how do I communicate subtly with my quarterback that that's what I'm doing? How do I get that repertoire? Or if I have an option to keep going straight or cut it inside, do I make that decision seamlessly and just get the timing right every single time? And Cooper Kupp does that every single time, and he subtly indicates to Stafford where he is going to go, and it just gives Stafford such a great security blanket because Kupp gets to choose, and Kupp always chose right, and this is the season you get from that. And he caught everything. He maximized every single opportunity. So his season, even though it was on linebackers, was impressive, and I'm not going to deny him Offensive Player of the Year. Based on, his role wasn't quite as impressive. And I'm kind of walking back on that anyway. So Cooper Kupp, Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year. Crazy year for Depoy, all right? Robert Quinn did not get a smidgen of hype this year. He had 18 and a half sacks and was not even considered for the award. That's how good it was. Look, I've heard valiant arguments made for Myles Garrett from the PFF, side of things. I've heard of, they started pushing Aaron Donald. I've heard valiant arguments for Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and TJ Watt. All those guys had phenomenal seasons. All those guys were just nightmares to defend all year. Trayvon Diggs even, he didn't deserve it at all, but 11 interceptions is crazy for a cornerback. That also happened this year. So it was just a crazy year for defensive statistics, and the award could have gone a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, if you get 22 and a half sacks and tie a record as important and prestigious as the single season sack record, it would be hard to justify giving it to anyone else in the future. Imagine someone in the year 2035 looking back and being like, man, TJ Watt, what a season that was. He played 15 games and had tied that sack record. That's still standing. And imagine being like, oh yeah, no, he didn't get Depoy that year. No, we gave it to Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald, he won faster. The shoulder pads in his chips gave him a higher pass rush win rate. So, sorry TJ, it's going to Aaron Donald. PFF gets to pick the winner every year. He's the best player every year. Every year is just a Donald Depoy. Doesn't check out to me. Doesn't compute to me. Yes, Donald is the best defensive player in football, and I've been saying it for a long time. The best defensive player ever, potentially. He's as dominant as any football player has ever been. Ever. Jerry, to be the best every single freaking year is a Jerry Rice type of run that he's on. And if it was just best defensive player in football award, I'd have no problem giving it to Aaron Donald. But I just don't want it to go to Aaron Donald every single season. And it might be a little bit unfair that he has kind of his own set of standards. And this was almost like an average Aaron Donald year. Whereas TJ Watt, broke or tied this record in 15 games. So Aaron Donald, I get it. I truly do if that's your guy. But it's I just don't think you can justify it with pass. In the future, are you going to be double teams? Oh, pass rush win rate, the shoulder pad chips. It's just the sacks are just a classic record. It's a good classic record. So that's why TJ Watt's my defensive player of the year. Pressure rate, it's cool. It's a good stat for, I think, predicting future success. If someone has a really good pressure rate and a low sack rate like Max Crosby this year, that's still a really big deal to me. And I really know that Max Crosby lit it up this year. But at the end of the day, 8 sacks does not make you, defensive player of the year. You just need a little bit more production than that. Not to say you weren't incredibly valuable or it's not a useful stat. It is. But in terms of awards, a feat like the sack record is just too rare not to reward. And shout out Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons as well. I'm not going to individually go over everybody, but TJ Watt, basically. And then my rail against using advanced analytics in award races. One more thing, I'm going on a tangent right now, but when someone is inducted into the Hall of Fame in 10 years, are they going to be his EPA was this, Cooper Kupp, remember when his DVOA was this, or Aaron Donald, his pass rush win rate was this? I just don't think that's going to be happening. I think accolades is always going to be kind of determined by your counting stats. And I don't hate that either. I don't hate it. The players care about counting stats. That's what they're trying to achieve. And the advanced stats are kind of a byproduct of that a little bit more. So imagine explaining to a player, it's oh, sorry, dude, I know you had. Anyway, I'm on a tangent right now. I will move on. TJ Depoy. All right, so that's Defensive Player of the Year. MVP, the big award. To me, it comes down to Rodgers and Brady, and I can see really good arguments for both of them. A co-MVP would not anger me if it both comes in at the same thing. I really do see the vision with both. Rodgers, to me, is playing at a little bit more of an irreplaceable style and game right now. I think if Rodgers got hurt and we saw Jordan Love for the whole year, the Packers would kind of be trash. They would kind of be trash without Aaron Rodgers. And they have a really talented team. Their defense at all the levels is good this year. Devontae Adams is arguably the best wide receiver in football. They have a really good running back duo. But this is the thing with MVP. Every MVP candidate kind of has a stacked team. That's how it works. Unless you're Cam Newton in 2015. Like, it takes two to tango. To have really good passing numbers, you need a really good wide receiver. You need Tyreek Hill. You need Rob Gronkowski. You need someone awesome. All right, to be. You need an elite coach. You need some. No one does it by themselves. No one actually. It's such a team sport. No one actually carries their team alone. It really does not happen in the NFL. So the stacked team argument, it comes into play a little bit. Rodgers' team would suck without him. I don't know. Like, as far as that goes, taking Rodgers away from the Packers would leave me less confident than just about any quarterback getting taken away from their team. Even Mahomes with Andy Reid, even Brady. I just think Jordan Love is not it. And like, Jordan Love almost threw as many picks as Rodgers did this year, and Jordan Love played like a couple drives. All right. So in terms of value there, like the irreplaceable measure, it's like, oh, if he was hurt, I know it's a hypothetical, but I really do believe that. Like, they're the 1 seed with Rodgers, and they probably don't lose a division without him, but they're not making the playoffs. They're not even the 7 seed with Jordan Love, in my opinion. Sorry, Jordan. And we saw it happen in the Chiefs game. And like, Kyler Murray got hurt, right? Kyler Murray got hurt, and Colt McCoy came in and won 2 games. Brady's play style was very dink and dunk, and it always is, but this year especially so, to the point where he wasn't even really good or efficient throwing it down the field. Like, you look at the next gen stats chart on him and the throwing zones. It's really good from 0 to 10 yards and just straight up bad beyond that. His accuracy beyond 10 yards this year, I mean, I looked it up. It's like 55%. That puts him below Jared Goff and above like Taylor Heineke and Trevor Lawrence. He was just not an elite player pushing the ball down the field this year. He wasn't. And he put up great numbers anyway. But I feel like that's a little bit more of a replaceable style. And if he were to go down, the Bucs would win more games than Rodgers, who was just lighting it up down the field, super efficient in all areas. And his team was a little bit worse than Brady's team. Like, you look at the Packers offensive line and you've got Bakhtiari missing the entire year, pretty much. Pro Bowl guard, Elton Jenkins, tackle. He plays everything. He's played every position on the offensive line. Torn ACL. You've got Josh Nijman, right, starting at left tackle. There's some nobodies, some rookies. Josh Myers, the good rookie center, got hurt. Injuries all along the offensive line, and it just didn't seem to matter. And a lot of that is on the Packers, run game coordinator and their offensive line coach. It's a team effort, right? Like I said, but those losses would be felt so much more if Rodgers didn't get the ball out so fast and set the protection so well. And he overcame a lot of injuries on that offensive line, dude, and was still, elite, And Brady dealt with his share of injuries too, right? You lost Chris Godwin at the end. Antonio Brown missed a large chunk of the season, but you still got 3 Pro Bowlers on that line healthy the whole time. You still got Mike Evans healthy the whole time. You still got Chris Godwin healthy most of the year. Gronk played really well. Rodgers, Tunyon got hurt. The offensive line got hurt. Adams missed a game. He was thrown to like Lazard as wide receiver 1, and they won that game. I just think he made everything run so smoothly this year. And beyond that week 1 debacle, pretty much, I don't know how you ask him to play more flawless football. He just simply did not turn the football over and was still making just high-level throw after high-level throw. It's not like he plays really safe with the ball. He puts it in harm's way all the time, and he still doesn't throw picks. And that's the case the whole career with Rodgers. It's amazing. So that's why I give it to Rodgers. Brady, if you look at like counting stats, yes, and even some efficiency stats, Brady's got an edge. If Brady ends up being the MVP, would not be mad at it. I see it. I see the argument there. You can make it. But for me, I think Rodgers is the most irreplaceable guy in football this year, last year, and honestly, kind of every year for the Green Bay Packers. As good as that roster is, I still don't really trust them without Rodgers. And I think that showed when Love played in the games. So those are my award picks. I hope that you don't disagree too vehemently. And if you do, be sure to leave lots of comments about how much you disagree. Lots of comments. Boost that engagement. I'll shamelessly say it. If you hate this list, please get very mad. But hopefully you don't. I really do. These really aren't my picks. I'm not saying anything crazy for engagement here. So yeah, those are the picks. I enjoyed giving them. I enjoyed watching this year. Great year. I mean, the stats for so many guys were we saw a lot of high level football this year. Like with the Triple Crown and the sack record and 2 just insanely good rookies. Just a lot of high level football this year. I loved watching it. Anyway, that does it for the first video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with another one soon.